You've probably played on a pool table before, but have you ever wondered what is underneath the cloth? What makes a pool table a pool table? What are the components? These things aren't like couches. They're very heavy and specific use items. We're gonna go through exactly what goes into everything about a pool table, from the wood to the cloth to the slate, in this video. So jumping right into it, we're gonna start talking about the rails. That's what's on top of the table. That's what everybody sees. The balls bounce into these things. They're made out of a few things. So that part that the ball makes contact with, it's actually a rubber cushion. And that cushion is made out of gum rubber. So I want you to think, if the rails were 100% gum rubber, that would literally be liquid that we could pour out of a glass. Since that's not the case, they also include clay and other plastics. That's what will make a cushion hard. So when you're buying a pool table or you're looking into buying a used table, you really want to look at that cushion and just make sure that what the lifetime is on that cushion. Some cushions have a high percentage of that gum rubber that we're talking about, and so they can literally last forever. And then others have a lower percentage. They have more clay, more plastics baked in, and because of that, they'll last 10 years or 15 years, or sometimes with sun exposure, they'll only last like 5 years. So when a pool table plays and it plays a little weird, it's probably got a bad cushion on it. So when we go into the next part, it's the second thing that everybody knows. Where do the balls go? Well, the balls go in pockets. And when they land in the pockets, they do one or two things. They stay in the pocket, or they go in a gully system. Now, that's the main two different things that are inside of a pool table. So when you have a drop pocket, depending on what kind of pocket you have, will determine how many balls that will fit inside of that pocket. Are they rubber pockets? Are they leather pockets? And then how many balls can they hold? So what's the capacity? So when we look at that pocket, that is something that you really want to like truly think about. How many balls can I put in here? Some rubber pockets, deep pocket, tournament style pockets, they'll hold, I don't know, maybe like 10 balls, something like that. Where on a traditional residential style pocket, like many of the tables that we sell today, you're gonna hold 5 to 6 balls. So what does that matter? Who cares how many balls can stay in a pocket? One pocket players care. One pocket is where you're shooting your balls into one pocket. And so you have to think, as you're playing that game, how many times do you want to have to take the balls out of the pocket, right? You have 7 balls per color, right? So if I'm solids, I've got to put 7 in one pocket. If my pocket only holds 6 balls, that's going to be annoying, especially as you're playing. And then the second thing you have is that gully. And when you do a gully, all the balls roll back to the center. It depends on what side of the table, but usually the head rail. So as the balls are all rolling back to the center, as a one pocket player, it's a little bit hard to remember who made the balls. Because if you put it in the side pockets, or if you put it in any of the other pockets, guess what? They're still rolling back to that center space on the head rail. So that's the main difference in pockets. So now that we've talked about the cushions, the rails, the pockets, there's only one thing left to talk about that you can actually see, and that's going to be the cloth. So I brought out 3 different samples here: Championship, Andy 600, and Simonis. So these 3 different types of cloth are for 3 different reasons. As I break down each of these in this video, we're going to explain the differences between the 3. So you have 2 major different ones. So you have what is called a woven cloth, and then you have what's called a worsted cloth, often noticed by all the way that it's actually woven together. So what's the difference, you may ask? So when we talk about championship grade cloth, this is that residential type cloth. So it's going to be slower. It's going to be more durable as far as like stain and spills, because oftentimes, especially if you're buying a table from us, it's going to be Teflon coated. So that means it's stain and spill resistant. So you could literally pour a drink on top of this stuff, and it's going to bubble up on top. You can pat it dry, and it's as dry as it was before. So when you go into some other types of cloths, right? Like when we talk about like the Andy 600, it doesn't stretch as much. So it's a tighter weave. Right? That tighter weave is going to equate to a faster play. And then also, it's a little bit more durable when it comes to like humidity environments, right? So you're going to have less flex in the felt, but also the other thing too that you have to like think about when you're playing is the little white marks, right? The little burn marks that you get on the table. Most people like think it's dirt or it's chalk. It's actually the ball is burning the felt. And when the ball does that, it leaves that little mark that everybody sees on the tables, especially like where you're racking the balls. On the higher performance cloth with the Simonis 860 or the Andy 600T, which we sell, it's also Teflon coated. That is a little bit more durable for those specific things. It's not as durable when it comes to the water, right? So if it's not Teflon coated, like your Simonis 860, which is the tournament This is the #1 standard. If you're playing competitively, you want Simonis 860 on your table. That right there, it's not going to be Teflon coated. If you get any liquid on there, you're going to make marks. It's going to be stained and spilled, so it's not going to be the greatest for that type of use case. But you will see this stuff in bars all over the country because it's what you want to play on if you're a pool player. It's the fastest playing. It's the most accurate. Simonis 860 is the top tier when it comes to cloth. When we transition from the cloth, underneath that, you're going to have the slate. And that is by far the most important piece that comes on a pool table. So you can get this in a couple different ways. You can get one-piece slate tables that are more like your bar boxes. You can get three-piece slate tables, which are more of like your residential style homes. It's the most popular way to buy a pool table. If you're buying a pool table, it's not a bar box. It's 99% of the time going to be three-piece slate. So the question is, what is slate? It's a rock. And it's a heavy rock. It's a non-porous rock. This right here, to show you kind of just the size of it, this weighs about 20 pounds, and it's a small cutout. So when the slate is cut out of the mountains, it's kind of a crazy process because they take this big, huge rock. It's like 10 feet by 10 feet, and they cut it out and they diamond sand this thing down so it's nice and perfectly smooth so that the balls roll perfect. But what a lot of people don't realize, especially some of our clients who think like, oh, if I move a pool table, I broke a piece of slate, I can just buy one piece of slate. You can buy just one piece of slate, but it's not recommended because that three pieces that you're getting on your table came off of the same rock the way it came out of the mountain. And that's almost as important as the slate itself. When you're buying a table and it's a non-slate table, just get ready to buy that thing every year because it's going to be unlevel, it's going to warp, it's going to move. If you're looking to buy a table that's going to last generations, it's going to last the test of time, slate is the way you want to go. And again, I mentioned it's a non-porous rock. So they have tried for decades to replace slate because of the weight, because of how heavy it is, because of how unique it is. Everybody wants a different alternative, especially as an installer. We're carrying this stuff in, right? They make carts, they make all these other things to help you carry slate. And all the other different technologies that they've tried to use granite, they've tried to use this fake slate compound that's supposed to mimic slate, right? Concrete backing board, right? None of it beats slate. It is the tried and true proven method. If a table doesn't have slate on it, it's probably not worth buying. Before we go any further, I want to talk to you, the viewer, who's watching this channel right now. Look down below. Does it say subscribed or subscribe? If it says subscribe, hit the subscribe button, like this video for more pool table specific videos. Now back to the video. The next thing that we're going to be covering in this video, we're going to be talking about the frame. So this is going to be the second most important part in my opinion. What is this slate, the most important part, sitting on? Some tables have steel frames, some tables have wooden frames, some tables have the cabinet built into the frame itself. And all of those different parts are going to matter on the durability of your frame, the consistency of your game, and basically we have to look at what it's made out of. So most of the internal frames are going to be made out of probably a lesser finish board, right? Maybe like a pine. Some tables have it made out of oak. Some people have it made out of steel. Now, the reason that they're transitioning more to steel, and I'm seeing that more common, especially on tournament style tables, is because of the flex. So when we level slate, we have to wedge it, we have to shim it. Some companies have slate leveling systems, which allow us to use a nut and bolt to level that slate to make it nice and even all the way across. And that's what you need, because if one pocket's lower than the other, the ball's not going to roll straight. It's going to roll off, right? And then if with a three-piece slate table, you could imagine, right? We've got this edge right here. Well, if we have two edges coming together, that's going to be a gap. We need to fill that gap with something, right? And so what we use, it's basically the industry standard. It's a compound, right? So you use super glue, you use wax, beeswax preferably, to cover that gap so it's as smooth as glass. It's like one piece all the way across when we're finished so that the balls don't have a little hump, right? They don't get moved, they don't get turned. When we go to the inside of the frame, we're going to be talking about like the leveling system. And that's kind of what we're getting into. When we put those gaps together, right, we can adjust the slate, the three pieces. And depending on how the leveling system is, we have to do one of two things. We have to use wooden wedges, which we have to raise the middle piece, right? Often it's the two ends are higher and you have to raise the middle up, or you have a leveling system. And the leveling systems are growing in popularity on a lot of like the tournament style tables because they're bolts, they're made on, it's almost hard to get this wrong. You're going to tighten up the bolt or loosen the bolt to raise or lower the slate. But what that does is it eliminates flex because you have a lock nut And that lock nut prevents that from going up or down, which then, and theoretically, no matter what environment you put the table in, it should stay consistent across the board. Where if you did just the wooden frame on many traditional style tables, great for indoor use, great for climate controlled environments where humidity and the temperature is staying consistent, it's not irregular. What'll happen in an irregular environment, basically what'll happen is that wood will flex. It'll suck up the moisture in the air, it'll swell, and then it'll dry out. And when it dries out, it's gonna basically move. And that gap that it created when it swelled and returned to its original form is what's gonna make your slate move. That leads us to the next thing when we're talking about wood, right? Since we talked about how moisture affects the wood, we're gonna get into the legs and the cabinet. Now, a lot of people don't really understand what the legs and cabinet are. When we talk about cabinet, it's the part that's underneath the slate. So when you go underneath the slate, it's usually resting on the cabinet, and then you have the legs that go from the cabinet to the floor. Now, on higher end model tables, they're going to try to make the legs go underneath the slate. That's going to create the most amount of durability for you. All right, so California House specifically designs their tables so that when you set the slate on top of the wood, has a direct contact point to the floor. That's preferred in these, like if I were designing the perfect pool table, that's the way I would want it because it's going to create more durability, more strength. Right, if I'm bumping up against the table, it's not going to shake, not going to rattle. It's going to stay where it is. When we talk about how those cabinets are made, we really want to look at the species. So I brought a couple samples with me. I have an oak sample. I have an acacia wood sample. These are all samples from our suppliers with different finishes. And then we have a maple sample. Now, those three species are the most common that I'm seeing right now on the market on how pool tables are made and what they're made out of. Maple is going to be the preferred sample choice of like custom makers. Easy American wood, especially from American manufacturers. We see a lot of oak that comes in from kind of like overseas and imported tables. Acacia is very popular in an imported table. And then the third species, which I don't have a sample of, is walnut. And that walnut is the hardest wood. It's the most expensive. It's 3 to 4x the cost of a maple table, which is mainly the reason why a lot of tables are made out of maple. I think maple and oak would be the preferred choice. Like acacia walnut, it's much softer and cheaper than like your traditional, American walnut lumber because the lumber is just so hard. It's why it is the price that it is. So if you've got a pool table made out of maple, you've got slate, you've got, let's say, the Simonis cloth, all the best cushions in the world, there's still one component that holds all of that together, and that's the hardware. What connects all these pieces together? A lot of companies use metal bolts, nuts, right? I hate seeing screws because screws, like a sheetrock screw, they're so easy to break. I could break one off just by drilling it in a wall. If it gets a little tension on it, it'll pop the screw head. So some companies, usually those budget-friendly tables, are going to use screws, wood screws, to put their tables together. It baffles me that they even try that, but I have seen a lot of companies do it. So if your table doesn't have nuts and bolts, probably not worth buying because you take all of these components, you take all of these products, you're spending thousands of dollars for these materials, and then you want to put it together with cheap hardware. You really want to think hard about it. I want to see metal. I want to see the hardware. I want to see everything be up to the standards of everything else, right? So if we got slate, let's say we've got maple wood, we've got steel nuts and bolts, we've got Simonis cloth, we've got a cushion with a high percentage of gum rubber, we're probably going to have a great table. And so that's how all of those things really go together to make what's inside of a pool table. It's a lot more than a couch, right? All right, so now that we've covered all the components to a pool table, I want to explain kind of how these things work together and how all those components matter, but it really all comes down to your slate, right? So that's your playing surface. So if we were to rebuild this pool table from the ground up, we're going to assemble that cabinet. We're going to place it on those legs. All that hardware is going to tighten everything down. It's going to make it nice and level from the inside. We're going to carry it into your home. We're going to place it on your room of choice. And then we're going to put the slate on it. And then we're going to level that slate so it's nice and perfectly level. Apply the cloth, put the rails on that we've already pre-covered in our warehouse. Nail in your pockets or bolt in, depends on the manufacturer and how they're made. Then we're going to shoot it at the very end, make sure everything looks good. That's how all of these things go together. So while you may have played on a pool table, that's what goes into it. And that's why it's so important that when you're considering buying a pool table, getting one moved, or having service done on one, that you consider a professional, someone who works on this stuff every single day, someone who knows all these internal moving parts and how they work together to make sure that that slate and that ball rolls perfect every time. If you're in the market for a pool table or service on one, reach out to us at ledfordbilliardsupply.com or give us a call, 864-283-6929. Thank you for watching this video. If you want to see more content like this, behind the scenes, in-depth reviews of pool tables and other game room furniture, like this video, hit the subscribe button down below, and we'll see you in the next one.